The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ. And I've shut my phones off today. They're all off. All my phones are off.
And it is Wednesday, hump day in the Riv, and we got a big show today. So let's get right to Starfleet Admiral COVID and the COVID numbers.
Total cases for yesterday was 595,925. New cases was 1,683. Total deaths was 16,808. New deaths was 18. Bristol County had 59,727 cases.
And I just saw an announcement that Pfizer is saying that they have 100% effectiveness for children between 12 and 15.
I saw that this morning.
I don't believe in 100%. It'll never be 100%, but they obviously in that study they had over 2,000 children in the study, and they had 100% effectiveness. So it's pretty effective, which is good, because in order to get herd immunity, we need to vaccinate everybody, because they can be asymptomatic at that age and transfer it. So that's good news. A bit of good news on the political, pseudo-political medical front, because I just got my last Pfizer shot yesterday. So I got my second shot yesterday. So I have my I'm like, I have my card. I have my vaccination card. I am totally vaccinated. So, but yeah, so that's good news on that front. But let's get you got a little commentary on all the amazing feats that our politicians have given us. Besides higher taxes, higher fees, and more inflation of government. So.
Well, one of the things that I think is interesting is, as you know, there was an autistic child that died this past year, and the child advocate has pointed the finger of blame at DCF and the Fall River School Department. So there's another claim to fame for the mayor, because remember, he is also the school department. So this is his claim to fame. He's responsible for the death of a child. Like it or not, that's the finger from the child advocate. Now, if we're going to see some more of the reports on it, we'll have to see. But I think it's interesting that all of a sudden they're pointing the finger of blame at the school. And the headline reads, Office of Child Advocate report rules Fall River schools and DCF could have done more to prevent autistic boy's death. Well, guess what? I guess that's something we have to look at. But there's some other things that popped up this morning which really kind of bothered me a little bit. People are touting all the great and wonderful things that Oz has done. Oz, meaning Paul Coogan. And when I'm reading these things, I have to laugh, because they're giving Paul credit for things that are very interesting.
I can't wait.
Yeah, well, one of the people, MP Feidelberg, here's what she says. He's done a terrific job. Brand new when the pandemic hit, and he supported our number one resource when it counted, our kids. I can't even imagine what it was like for Mayor Coogan trying to help get a working laptop into the hands of every student with nothing budgeted for it in that year. No, there was nothing budgeted for it in that year. No, they used COVID money. That's where the money came from. It didn't come from Paul. Paul didn't pull it out of his backside. This came from COVID money. Okay? And getting those laptops in the hands of all those students was very simple. An email or message was sent out to all the parents, report to your school and pick it up. And for those parents that didn't pick it up, the school resource officers went out and brought it to the houses. So again, get your claims accurate if you're going to get them at all, because we're not going to have this. And then they said, well, nothing was budgeted for that year. And then helping support the teachers, kids, and parents through the most enormous academic crisis any of them is ever likely to face. It wasn't an academic crisis. It was an academic change. Okay? We can spin this any way we like.
Oh, spin. We're spinning so hard, I'm almost falling off the chair.
I'm almost dizzy.
Right, yeah. Well, they're dizzy.
Now, here's the other thing that really got me. Plus, he kept a daily tally of the COVID-19 cases and was in communication with all the key players, ignoring the naysayers who were so determined to brand him an alarmist. Nobody's trying to brand him an alarmist, but at the same time, he did not do that. The Department of Public Health provided those numbers to him.
Listen,
and just because he reported those numbers doesn't mean that he was the be-all, end-all, the man behind the curtain. Now, the worst thing about that was somebody came back and said it. So, they're like, so cut the man a little slack. He had a plague to contend with, economic collapse, and the most massive societal upheaval ever complete, with huge spikes in domestic abuse and addiction. Precisely what social services went online. Guess what? Fall River has always had a problem with domestic abuse. Fall River has always had a problem with addiction. And while there was an upheaval, or I should say an uptick in deaths from overdosing, okay, and there was an uptick in the domestic abuse filings, that the mayor couldn't do anything about that. So let's not give credit where credit isn't due. Well, but what I loved was when Dave Oliveira reported back and said, well, the TV stations reported it, several pages on Facebook reported it, and individual people reported all those numbers. Are all of those people also need to be the mayor because they did such a good job in reporting the numbers? We can spin it any way you like.
Where did the numbers come from? All they did was repeat the numbers that somebody gave them.
That's right.
It's campaign season, CJ, and you know and I know the minions, the minions of this mayor, especially from the school department, are going to start spinning like whirling dervishes. They're going to give him credit from everything. I'm surprised he didn't develop the Pfizer vaccine. The bottom line is, listen, everybody in the United States had it. All he had to do was be a lemming and follow the rest of the mayors and governors and everything else in the country who were doing all kinds of different things. So listen, they got a ton of money out of this. Nobody's and especially the one about the economic hardships in Fall River that's faced. Well, I don't know who wrote that, but you better get your head out of your derriere. Fall River has had economic hardships before, during, and after the pandemic. We have no workforce. We are one of the lowest. We have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, I haven't checked recently, per capita and household incomes in the state of Massachusetts. We have the highest crime rate. We are number one in crime. We are number one in all the negative categories. Fall River has not changed. It's been a dump because politicians, all they know how to do is raise taxes. Now we're going to give them credit for doing what everybody else did. Okay, we had a pandemic. And frankly, they did most of this stuff wrong, they're finding out.
That's right.
They stuck people in nursing homes with COVID. They're vaccinating people who are not at high risk first because of politics. This is all election season hyperbole that these people, all little minions, are going to be out there saying he's the greatest thing since. And as I said before, they're entitled to their opinion. However, be a little accurate. Give us some stats. I know one thing. The budget keeps getting bigger. There has not been one single attempt by this mayor to rein in spending. Remember, we're going to be looking at a budget with a 2.5, maximum 2.5 increase. They're going to bring in the debt override that was promised to be in 23 by the mayor, by the way. And you remember what he said then every time we talked about, don't worry about it. That's 23. And by that time, we probably won't even need the money. Well, we not only need that money, we need more money. You need the COVID money. You need the override money. You need all the money because you guys never stop spending. But remember one thing, voters / taxpayers, when this guy is running, that debt override comes in, 2.5 max. The city's broke. We're so broke, we need all this extra money to run it with a boatload of money. Didn't he run around saying we're going to be rich?
Yeah,
we're going to be rich. COVID money. We're rich. But we're not rich. We're broke. Why? Because they never stop spending. Remember one thing. We're so broke that we could give everybody a pay increase because it's an election year. So do you normally give pay increases when you're broke? Does private industry give all their workers an across-the-board increase when they're financially strapped? Do people in restaurants hire more people when they're getting less customers? No, only government does this. Remember, pay increases for everybody, cost of living increases for everybody, new positions being implemented, $150,000 position here, $100,000 position there. Is this the way your tax dollars are supposed to be spent? Whatever happened to a lean, bare bones government, a government that gives you the services that you need, fire, police, education, without 150 layers of administration and giant pay raises for people and duplications of effort all over the place. And I said it and I'll say it again. You know, and don't give me the stuff like this is his big cost-cutting thing. He got rid of the police and fire commissions, which were advisory. And he made a big deal out of that. You know how much we saved? $1,500 a year.
That's gonna make a big difference in the budget.
Yeah, well, remember there were 3 fire commissioners, so that's $4,500.
That's right.
You know, and then there's 3 police commissioners, so that's $9,000. We saved $9,000 in a nearly in an over $250 billion budget, and this is crap. All they keep doing is spending. They never, ever stop spending. You ever see a position? They don't eliminate anything. They just keep adding. Just keep adding. And this is what you get. This is what you get. It's time to stop and stop believing the con. They're using 50-year-old stuff on you. We're going to revitalize Pleasant Street. We're going to revitalize South Main Street. Yeah, the crown jewel of South Main Street is now a courthouse.
That's it.
You know, to show you, listen, they've got Newton-esque ways of thinking because all his friends are rich. They should all live in Newton. Because as you and I discussed yesterday, if any of you get HBO, I advise you to look at the first episode.
Showtime. It's Showtime.
I'm sorry, Showtime. And I told you that yesterday because I don't even have HBO anymore. They don't have boxing. I got rid of it. So Showtime has a series called City on the Hill. It's a series by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon on Boston and the corruption in Boston and government and blah, blah, blah. But if you again watch last week's show, which was the first show of the new season, I'm not sure if it's the second or third season, but I watched
the second season.
So it's funny because there's a scene in there that There's some guy talking about this ridiculous stuff like kiosks for a place like Fall River. No, I'm kidding. It's not kiosks, but some ridiculously elitist kind of way to move forward. And the other DA, the DA who was from Boston, looked at him and he said, puzzled, and said, like, this is like crazy. You could see it on his face. And he said, where are you from? And the guy answered, Newton. And he looked at him and said, well, that explains it. Because listen, Newton is a different world. And I'm saying it's a great world. I would like to have $165,000 income. I would like to live in a city with virtually no crime, tons of money, all single-family houses, no projects, no drug rehab clinics. Everybody would, but we don't. And stop pretending that we do, because all we get from Newton is the cost. I saw the thing on TV. Oh, look at the kiosk. And the guy was already complaining. First guy I ever interviewed, he goes, I got to walk all the way over there and come back over here and put it in my car. Why don't you put a couple in here? So, and then also, if you watch the close-up, it says it doesn't make change. So if you only got a $5 bill on you and you got to buy a ticket, you're not getting any change back. You can't just buy a buck's worth because it doesn't spit out change. And if you got a credit card, you may get mugged. But I mean, this is all political hyperbole. And it's the same old. The rich people who live in the Highlands and have a different way to live, just like Nancy Pelosi does, just like Dianne Feinstein and AOC. And I think somebody's doing research on Carmela. I guess her father was an economist and her mother was in cancer research. Very well-to-do, wealthy. And she talked about her impassioned thing, how she was bused. I was one of those children bused to school. She was bused to a private school. She wasn't bused to a public school, just like AOC. AOC went to private schools her entire life. They were all rich. They have it's just like the mayor of D.C. They live in a dream world. She's surrounded by an entire cadre of police. Yet Washington, D.C. is, again, at one time, it was the murder capital of the world. It's getting that. And I've got to digress here because I got to get this in. I don't know if you saw what happened to the Pakistani driver, Uber driver. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
Okay, well, you make a point of it. All of you should see that. We are approaching Easter, a weekend where Christians celebrate the forgiveness, the love of humanity. I want you to look at the humanity. We hear the critical race theory. Critical race theory is nothing more than dividing people by race. It's discriminatory and hateful. Because as Martin Luther King said, you should be judged by the content of your character, not the color of your skin. And that brings me to what happened. A Pakistani Uber driver, and I don't know if he was still an immigrant or he'd become a citizen. Now, this guy is working. He's driving his Uber. A 13 and a 15-year-old girl jump into his car. They tase him. They try to carjack him. He's fighting, yelling. You can hear him, and idiots are just taping it. Nobody's helping. This is my car. This is my car. They tased him. Then they pushed him out of the seat, and he's between the driver's seat and the door. They hit the gas, flip the car over, crush him with the car. Another person of color, and they were two black young ladies. I'm using ladies facetiously. What kind of human being does that? And then when they got out of the car, the only thing that they were saying was, my phone's in there. My phone's in there. While a man, a human being, is bleeding to death, crushed by his own car, a 15 and a 13-year-old don't care. Where is our society going? No value at all for human life, regardless of color. No value at all of human life. My phone. And then the way the media portrayed it initially, they didn't even call it a murder. They said a carjacking that resulted in an accident. They didn't say anything. It wasn't like what happened in that. Remember what happened in the supermarket? A white gunman. They didn't say two black girls, teenagers. They said a white gunman. And I don't care about the color. That's what I'm saying. It's not about color. Because I have a theory. And you're going to hear it here. It's called not critical race theory. It's called the human race theory. The problem with society is not the color of your skin. It's the content of your character. These two junior murderers who will probably ultimately lead a life of crime, because to do that at 13 and 15 without regard for human life shows what they're made of. But I'll tell you something. It's the human race theory. Because it's got nothing to do with the color of your skin. It's got to do with the content. We have evil people in this world of all colors. And until we realize that and don't say that all lives matter, that all human beings deserve to be treated with respect, we're screwed. Because the fact is, I'll show you why my theory is a fact. I can show you evil people of all colors. Anthropologically, there's a few new ones they added, but technically there's 3 classifications. Caucasoid, Negroid, Mongoloid. White, black, yellow. Now they've got a few more that they said evolved over the centuries, like they're now classifying Australians. But there's 3 fundamental. So I'll give you an example of people who are inherently evil. We'll start with the yellow race. Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, every time he went into a new country, he murdered every man, woman, and child in a village to ensure that the next village would be compliant. And if they didn't, he'd murder everybody in that village. He was a vicious, evil person, great military leader. So now we go to the black. Anybody ever hear of Idi Amin Dada? And how many people he killed? And we'll go to the white. I'll give you my all-time favorite, Adolf Hitler. So there you go. There's 3 evil sacks of human refuse that had no compassion for anybody, that killed indiscriminately, and we can go on forever. Joe Stalin. You can go into the ethnic cleansing in Africa and Sudan and people killing other people from other tribes. It's got nothing to do with the skin tone. Don't believe this crap. Treat everybody the way you would like to be treated. It's got nothing to do with race. It's got to do with who you are as a person. Live up to your Christian values, or your Jewish values, or your Muslim values, or your Buddhist values. Treat people correctly. Easter's this Sunday. Think about that for a second. And I'm sorry I digressed, but I had to do that because that was appalling. When I saw that man who came to this country to make a life for himself, working hard to do it, being murdered by 2 cretins, it really pissed me off.
Well, and you've told it just like it is. I can give you a few more in the white section. John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah. I mean, we got a million of them. I mean,
yeah.
And thing. And if you go and look at Africa with all the tribal wars they've had and stuff, and they kill people indiscriminately, they still got slavery in Africa. Right. And it's like, it's got nothing to do with skin color. It's got to do with evilness. The reality is, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens said it best. Man, he didn't say black man, yellow man, white man. He said man is the only animal that can blush and the only one that needs to. Why? Because we have people in this society, whether all the rich yuppies, they never get near them because they all got their own security. So they'll allow this country to degenerate. The murder rate's up 40% in one city, 100% in another city, and they're defunding the police. But I can guarantee you, Nancy Pelosi has security. The mayor of DC, after this accident, I'm going to show you how they have a total disregard for human life. You know what she did? She released a tweet with her photoshopped into a police cruiser saying, "Keep your doors locked." In other words, she was blaming this Pakistani trying to make a living for the carjacking. Oh, it was your fault. You had your doors open. You had your engine running. Then she yanked it down because of the outrage. But that was it. She fundamentally, the first thing out of her mouth was to cover. She talked about, oh, he shouldn't have had his engine running. He should have had his doors locked. You know, when you get caught carjacked, it's your fault. That's where we've degenerated as a society. That is criminal, and that is reprehensible behavior. And I started with Martin Luther King on this one. People should be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And he was a peaceful demonstrator for equal rights for everybody, regardless of color. And I'll close that with someone who was the exact opposite, who was a black militant that wanted black separatism and believed in murdering white people for a while. Then he went to Mecca and he saw blonde-haired, blue-eyed Muslims, and he came back a different man. And you know who that was? It was Malcolm X. And Malcolm X said when he came back, and by the way, they murdered him because he actually began to treat people based on the content of their character. He was assassinated. But he said, "I'm for justice, no matter who it's for." No matter who. And I'm for the truth, no matter who tells it. There you go. And we've wasted, it wasn't a waste of time. We have Easter coming, and I know it's a big holiday, but instead of worrying about the Easter bunny and the eggs, think about where our country is going now. When things like that happen every day on the street, it's because of the divisions that the Democratic Party is perpetrating. They're making everybody into their own tribe, and tribalism only begets wars between the tribes. This was supposed to be a melting pot. Let's all be Americans, and let's all judge people by the content of their character.
You really are asking a lot, aren't you, Chip?
I guess so.
As we know, it's very difficult sometimes to happen in our country. But you're right. This is Lent. This is Easter Holy Week. And Easter is this Sunday. And people can look and hopefully they make some changes. But remember, those changes all have to start locally. And what I mean by that is within your own life. And then spread it out to your community. Because Fall River needs all the help it can get. So if we can get a few key people to make some changes in their life, to hopefully carry that forward, to have changes in the community's life, we'll be better off. Well, we're out of time. I didn't get to say much today. Oh, boo-hoo. And we didn't get interrupted by phones. I want to thank you for watching. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, wear a mask, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.